Well, I recently watched Black Lagoon. Now, this copy is only the first 24 episodes. It does not contain the 5-part OVA. I intend to watch that in the future at some point, but for now it's just going to be the first 24 episodes. Now, the first thing right away that you could say about this anime is that it is like Cowboy Bebop, and I would say the exact same thing. There is a thematic concept to the main cast, particularly with the characters of Dutch, Benny, Rock, and Revy. Those four have a certain connotation that molds into the Bebop crew, especially with Dutch. Dutch, from the very first episode, I thought it was a lot like Jet. Though Jet is a little bit more morality-based than Dutch, though the character of Dutch also has plenty of morality himself. Dutch reacts strongly to some of the more amoral concepts that he refuses to partake in, if that makes sense. As he says in one of the first 2 episodes to the character of Rock, they are just a simple delivery crew, and they happen to skim over the edge of right and wrong sometimes, but they're just there to deliver whatever they're told to deliver, and then they go back after they've been paid. It's as simple as that, really. The core focus, though, of Dutch is that he won't cross over certain lines, such as he wouldn't directly shoot an unarmed opponent, although the character like this one might. He's even stopped her from doing such at certain times. You could tell that Dutch has gone over that tipping point, but he has not drowned in it, which is easily to say the same thing of the character of Benny, which is he is the tech guy, though he's not exactly Edward from Cowboy Bebop, not nearly close, though they both share the same role of the tech person, the one who does the techie tech stuff. Benny was a hacker type dude who angered pretty much everybody. He's like the guy who wants to be the best at cracking all of the codes, and sometimes the people who have the best ones are the ones who don't want you to crack them. And he cracked them, and he angered everybody, so he's hiding out here in the Black Lagoon Company. And then we have Revy. Revy is, I just want to make a disclaimer here. If there are official statements stating these characters are otherwise something else, or if the OVA series reveals them as something else, then I do not know those. I am just merely reacting to my own personal interpretations based off what I have watched and the thoughts that I have obtained through watching these things. And then with a disclaimer out of the way, Revy is, to me, one of those extremely flawed characters that drowns in the darkness, but is not exactly swimming towards the bottom of the ocean, but is in fact actually on her back, floating downwards, staring up at the diminishing light of the surface above the ocean, without the strength to swim upwards. There's like weights on her wrists dragging her down. And if she's going to go to the bottom, she might as well enjoy herself along the way. That's my interpretation at any rate. And insert Rock. The character of Rock is the audience perspective character, because I certainly hope most people don't exactly go into the other darker character aspects, like of Roanna Purr, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But the Rock character is a little bit more relatable. He is the 9-to-5 guy. He is the guy in the civilian life living a normal, boring civilian lifestyle. He's a Japanese salaryman living in, I think, Tokyo, working in a mid-area in the corporate office work. He has to suck up to his bosses. He attends the company meetings, he does the paperwork, and he's usually the fall guy when a big higher-up wants to do something sneaky, which is exactly what happens to him in this first episode. He is tasked to deliver some data, and he gets kidnapped by the Black Lagoon company, who have been hired by another group to procure the data that Rock has. Revy decides, after they have successfully taken the data that Rock had, to take Rock as a hostage, because he works for the company that was manufacturing the data. They're going to sell the data, so it's not like they can give that back to the company, but they can give Rock back to the company. She's a greedy type of character. And then the surprising reality is that Rock's company doesn't care about him. They never really did. He's just a nameless number in a big statistic of employees that is easily replaceable. He was expendable. That's the reason why he's even out here at all. And he gets a call from the company, and they basically say that he has already been publicly announced to be dead, and that he should just disappear. They've already hired mercenaries to finish him off. And so he joins forces with the Black Lagoon company to take out the mercenaries, and he decides to leave his old life behind and join the Black Lagoon company. And throughout the rest of the story, the character of Rock rides that line between the light and the dark. And you get the feeling that this is a type of character that doesn't really belong in either world. He doesn't belong in the world of the civilian, normal, humdrum lifestyle. It feels like he was already a corpse there, too. And in the land of Roanna Purr, which is basically like Nassau to the Pirates of the Caribbean, and the West Indies, the Caribbean Indies, pirates, Golden Age piracy, Nassau, you know what Nassau, it's basically like that. Or Tortuga for the Pirates of the Caribbean thing, that's what I was thinking of, that's what I was trying to think of. That's what Roanna Purr is. It's like this hideout for all of the big stuff in the South China Sea area. The South China Sea is the Pirates of the Caribbean version of that area, basically, to my knowledge. So, there in Roanna Purr, the Black Lagoon company basically ferries things from all the mafias and other sorts of other government types. Because a lot of people are aware of Roanna Purr. They allow it to exist because it's profitable to them. That's the line between the light and the dark, is that there probably is no real dividing line. Everybody is like this, no matter where you are. Some people are just a little bit more open about it. It's really philosophical in that regards. It's very easy to think that this show is just a bunch of Michael Bay hot babes and guns and chases and explosions and all that other stuff. And it has plenty of that. It is really fun. It is one of the most entertaining shows I've seen in a good long while. But it also has some of the most deep character moments that I've also not seen in a very good long while. You come to really feel, especially for the main two characters of Revy and Rock, they are relatable in a lot of ways. Well, I certainly hope Revy's not relatable in the trigger-happy, gun-toting way, but in a certain, like, personality-flawed way. And this is just my own interpretation of these characters, mind you. Rock is that guy who's living in the twilight, as you learn in the final few episodes. He's the guy that doesn't belong in either world. As I've said, he's not the type to pick up the gun and shoot somebody, but he's also not the type to think that a few people along the way passing down to save somebody he feels doesn't belong in the darkness is worth the price. He would not have otherwise said that at the start of the show, which is starting to show you, the viewer, that the city of Roanapur is starting to corrupt even him. Although there's a thing he says, I think he's either in like episode 5 or episode 6 or 7, somewhere around there, after the submarine arc. Rock confronts Revy about certain things that they had a fight about previously. And Rock says, just because there's no Robin Hood in the world of the darkness doesn't mean you can't become one yourself. And that goes back to one of the oldest sayings in the book, be the change you want to see in the world. If there is nothing happening and you feel as if something should happen, and then if you feel like you're the only one who thinks about this type of change, then be that change. Go and change, you know. And it harkens back to some of the other things and some of the other stories that I've talked about. Xenos Saga, I've talked about that in the Evangelion video that I made. There's a couple of characters in there that also talk about these types of things, in that if there's no change and you feel there needs to be a change, do it yourself. And Rock eventually takes on his own words as he's trying to slowly use the humanity that's left in the characters around him to help mold storylines, slightly shift things in certain directions. He may fail in saving a lot of people that he desires to save, but from a certain perspective, he might be saving the people who believe themselves to have already been lost. For example, the characters of Dutch, Benny, and Revy in particular. Revy especially has a huge change from the start of the show up to the 24th episode. She almost becomes protective of Rock in a certain way, trying to shield him from all of this dark stuff. At first she tried to toughen him up, and then now she seems to be focused on preventing him from falling too far down into this dark criminal underworld. There are a lot of moments in the Japan arc where Rock and Revy return to Japan for a certain arc that Revy starts to show a lot more humanity, almost a desire to go into the world that Rock used to be in. But then she sees this world as alien to her, just as Rock is starting to see that this world is kind of alien, getting alien to him as well. It's like she's starting to feel like she wants to not be as far down under the abyss as she is, though she can't really live on the surface. So maybe Rock might be pushing people who are down in the dark into the twilight with him, perhaps, you know. Maybe that's the view. As you know, I haven't seen the OVA, so clearly I don't know. I haven't read the manga, so I don't know. This is just from my personal interpretation. Just from this. Okay, just from this. So clearly I could be very, very wrong here. But that's the vibe I get from the character of Rock, is that he may have failed to save certain characters in some of these arcs, but the way he convinces the people who are already down in the darkness to do some morally good decisions, or morally grayish decisions at the very least, is surprising, because you wouldn't have expected that from these characters. Dutch right away shows that he's not exactly as dark as most of the other guys. Benny right away shows that he's not exactly as dark as the other. But Revy is the surprising one. She does a lot of things that surprise you. Rock challenges her quite a lot after their first fight. And you would get to think that were Rock anybody else but him, she probably would have just, she probably would have just flew off the handle at them. But she lets Rock challenge her in some of these things, getting her to take his side, per se, until the final arc of this 24-episode series. Benny calls Rock and says that he's quite the ladies' man. Revy would not be joining him were she not worried about him. And you get that feeling that she wants to keep him from getting in over his head, because he's like the golden boy in Roanapur. He's the guy that's far more moral than almost everybody else down there, to the point that if he continues to object to a lot of these people, he's going to get himself killed. And Revy knows this, so she's trying to shield him from that world. She almost tries to convince him to leave and just stay here in Tokyo and not come back to Roanapur, thinking that this is where he belongs, this is where he should be. It's kind of interesting. I thought of Cowboy Bebop, and I've been talking mostly about this, and so I'm just going to move this out of the way now. But it's funny, I talked about Cowboy Bebop, about how I thought about that when I first watched this series, and I compared the characters of Dutch to Jet and all that stuff. But there's another thing that this show reminded me of by the end of the series, and I don't have a hard copy to show off, but Lady and the Tramp 2. I know, it's completely asinine to think that some Disney sequel that nobody watched is reminiscent of Black Lagoon, but the basic synopsis is that the dog child of Tramp and the lady character from the first movie, he feels suffocated in his humdrum civilian domesticated house pet life. And he wants to become a street dog and go out like the strays and all that stuff. So he runs away from home. And he gets rounded up into a local gang of sorts. Just a bunch of street dogs. And he thinks this life is a little bit more exciting for him. And there he meets one of the street gang dogs, who actually envies the son of the Lady and the Tramp character's life as a domesticated pet, and she actually wants a life like that. She doesn't necessarily enjoy being out here. She could be one of the street gang dogs if she needs to be, and she might even enjoy it sometimes, but she would like to not be there. And you get to see the two worlds clashing. And then there's that scene, there's one phrase that still rings to me, even to this day, 20 years later, since I've seen that movie, that the son of the Lady of the Tramp looks to the girl and says, "I would give anything to have what you have." And the street dog looks at him and says, "I would give anything to have what you have." And you get that dichotomy here, where they're meeting in the middle by the end of the movie, and then she eventually gets a new family. It's very sweet, it's very wholesome. I liked that movie. I liked the first movie more, but I really liked that second movie. I still remember it to this day clearly, but I thought about that when I watched this. Is clearly an R-rated adult darker story that's probably not going to have a happy ending, but it made me think about that moment between the Rock character and the Revy character. Rock may already be slowly moving towards this twilight. He's never probably going to go as far down here, but he's comfortable here. And Revy is going like she envies him for being from this world and capable of going back. Rock is capable of making a choice. He can go back to Tokyo whenever he wants, really. He has no criminal record. He's not really the guy who does all of the crimes. He's just there to ask people to sign delivery forms and all that stuff. He's the business guy. He's the negotiator. He's the mediator. He solves a lot of issues through diplomacy rather than through violence. Things that Revi's not exactly used to. And she envies his position, most especially. And she kind of wants to go here, but doesn't necessarily feel like she belongs here. Like, think of it as being like somebody who's lived on the outskirts of society for so long, and they enter a Walmart, and they feel like they don't even belong there, and they kind of shy away and just leave because it kind of feels too clean, too safe. They feel like they don't deserve such a lifestyle, such a redemption. And Rock, at that when he had that first fight, he sees that, and he may want to bring her into the middle road like him, and she may compromise eventually in joining him in this position between the two worlds. Though she clearly does act like she belongs here, and he clearly acts like he belongs here, they both, in their heart minds, might actually just belong here. And it was really sweet in its own twisted, dark humor kind of way. But there's a lot of moments that you get to see in this show that show off Revi's growing attachment to Rock. She's extremely protective of him in a kind of tsundere type of way. She'll never actually admit that she may like him. I get the feeling that she likes him. I do. She may never openly admit it, but you get the feeling that it doesn't need to be admitted. Like, they both are kind of aware that there's something here, but it doesn't really need to be talked about. It makes them uncomfortable to talk about these things. Her especially. But you get the feeling that it's there. You get the feeling that there's something already there. And they're okay with whatever this is right now. And the way they talk to each other by the final arc, they act like they're already together in a lot of ways. Like, she's yelling at him for confronting the mob boss, Balalaika, who is a character Rowan Percy's recurring character, tough as nails, dark mafia world character. And she confronts him for being stupid by challenging Balalaika and almost got himself killed. But the surprising thing to me, and hopefully to a lot of other people who have been analyzing her character, the more surprising thing isn't that Rock challenged Balalaika, that's what he would do, and that Balalaika pulled a gun on him, which is another thing that Balalaika would do. The surprising thing is that Revi pulls a gun on Balalaika instinctively, immediately, to protect Rock. She's practically begging Balalaika not to kill him. You get this feeling that she doesn't want... It's there, basically. This little connection is there. She might see Rock as a hope to get her out of the darkness, but she might also see that she may only be wanting to go out of here because of him, you know? She may have already seen this world of the civilians and saw that it was just a bunch of drab garbage. But it's this connection that you make with people that are actually from these types of things that you actually connect to, that build these types of bonds, these types of connections, if that makes any sort of sense to you. I liked that, though. I really did. There's another moment about halfway through where where Rock and Revi have to deliver a briefcase of documents to another location, and they get kidnapped by some terrorists. Rock does, and Revi meets up with their contacts that they were supposed to deliver the briefcase to, and she says that Rock has been kidnapped and he's the one who holds the bracelet, but the briefcase, and if they don't go and get him, then the documents are lost. So she convinces the contacts to help her save Rock from the terrorist camp. But the reality was that Revy already took the documents out of the briefcase and hid them on her person. So Rock never had the documents, and for all intents and purposes, he is expendable. This is like a reversal, a very surprising little reversal here. At the very start of the show, he was delivering some documents, and the company that he represents viewed him as expendable and said, do what you want with him after that. We don't care. Go ahead and kill him. We'll kill him ourselves, actually, even, because we don't want him to leak that we've been involved in this crap. But that's from the world of life. That's the civilian world people. That they basically viewed Rock as expendable. And here we have Revy, somebody who's so drowned in this dark underbelly, who doesn't view Rock as expendable. She has the documents. She could finish this mission by herself and go back to Lagoon Company and say, mission complete, Rock was a casualty, whatever. But that's not what happens. These characters care about each other. They have a camaraderie. She risks a lot to go back there with these contacts that she had, and together they were able to get Rock out of there. And then she reveals that she had the documents the whole time, surprising everybody. So really the only reason she went back there was to get him. That's it. That is character development. That is growth, and that is powerful moments. At least to me, I found them to be very powerful and moving moments, because they're not really expected from characters like this. They're not expected. But when they happen, they feel more powerful. Think of it like if Batman went to save Robin, you expect that. You expect that from his character. Now we have a heel face turn and we see Harley Quinn going to save Robin. You don't expect that from her, but she goes to do it anyways, and she does to do it for no apparent gain other than to get him out of there, That is an unexpected move. What does Revy have to gain from saving Rock from the terrorists? Absolutely nothing. She has the documents. She can finish this. She can probably get paid more because she gets to take Rock's cut. But she goes to get him anyways. That's what's important here, is that she's developing as a character. She's learning senses of morality and attachments and camaraderie that she did not otherwise possibly possess. Rock's influencing her into this little morally gray world, though she's still far more experienced with this society and Rock isn't. He's incredibly naive, that she's also very protective of him in keeping him from all of the dark stuff. So if he tries to go down here, she's gonna come in here and kick him back into the twilight. She ain't gonna let him get down here where she is, because she knows what that life is like. She knows that pain, that self-loathing, that hatred, and all that stuff. There is a theme at the end of the show where she explains that Roanapur is the city of the dead. The people might be alive, but they're dead people walking. And there's a dichotomy. There's a similarity between it as well. At opposite sides of the spectrum, but the same conclusion. Rock may believe that the 9-to-5 world is also a bunch of dead people. You may call it this is the city of the living, but from his perspective with the start of the show and from a lot of other things he said, he views that world as a similar city of the dead, but from a different point of view. these people working the 9 to 5s with brains that are just full of antsy-pantsy living until you die type of stuff, and they never actually do or go or be anything other than what they're trapped in, if that makes sense. Whereas he sees the people in this world as people living on that edge, but they're making their choices. They're going wherever they want. They can be as important as they wish to be. It's like the ultimate gamble. I equate Roanapur to a casino a lot of the times. You can win the jackpot and become the leader of the mafia boss, or you can blank out and get snake eyes and get shot between the eyes. It's like a casino there. It's a gamble every single day, and there is that sort of rush that he might find appealing, even though he'll never stoop to those morally dark decisions at the same time. He feels a certain rush, a freeing rush that his repressed state of basically being a dead man walking wasn't able to express in this world. And they both view it as terrible places to be. And they might have opposing whatever. So it's like, no, this is not the best place to be if you're living up here. But down here, this may be an ideal place, but maybe when you go here, you feel like, wow, this place is way too alien. So they meet in the middle, and it makes a lot more sense. Both worlds make a lot more sense when you're living right here in the middle of the light and the dark, and living the land of the twilight, as Rock would put it. There's a lot of great, deep, dark, emotional moments through the strength of character and the delivery of the character dialogues and stuff like that. It was fantastic. I can't wait to see that 5-part OVA show. I could probably do long, extensive character studies on the Rock and Reby character, but as much as I've said now, I think is all that really needs to be said. There's probably not going to be a happy ending for these two characters. They're not gonna go get married and run off to open a farmhouse in South America and just be a happy couple. I don't think either one of them really expects that type of life to even happen anymore. But they can make the best of the worlds that they come from and meet in the twilight and stay there together. And that might be enough for them. Who knows? It was a very good show, and I liked this one a lot. Far more than the other one I made a video on. And I just want to say that I would equate Evangelion to Schindler's List. I consider Schindler's List one of the greatest movies ever made. But I'm not in a hurry to watch it again. Black Lagoon, I would consider not one of the greatest shows ever made, but I would be far more likely to watch it again than I would Schindler's List, if that makes sense. I still plan to watch the 4 Evangelion movies, though. I'm going to be doing that. Most definitely, I'm going to be doing that. And I'm going to watch the OVAs, and hey, I may be back to make another follow way down the line whenever I get to it. I may need to rewatch Cowboy Bebop as well at some point, but that's neither here nor there. This is all I got. I don't know how to end these things.